This isn't a video dunking on the boycott and making fun of those that participated in it. If you clicked on this video expecting that, I am sorry, but you will be disappointed. This video aims to explain why the boycott failed, what could have been done differently, and some extra thoughts on extremists, hypocrites, and racists in the community. Genshin has gone through many controversies over the years. The situation with the first anniversary only giving 10 wishes, the spread of misconception that Mihoyo only gave 3 wishes for the 4th anniversary, despite it being February at the time. It was actually 13 wishes, and it was for Lantern Rite. I don't know how the 3 wishes for anniversary thing got started, but in case you're still confused, that's what actually happened. The incident with Sumeru, and now the incident with Natlan. Mihoyo aren't exactly strangers to controversies, even outside of Genshin Impact. It's par for the course at this point. This is, I believe, the 2nd time Genshin has been boycotted. I don't quite remember which one of the 4 major events also had an attempt at boycotting, but I'm sure this isn't the first time. But this is the most advanced or egregious one yet. Why didn't the boycott work? Because it wasn't really a boycott. Continuing playing the game while saying you are boycotting it is, in hindsight, very counterintuitive, something I didn't realize when I posted my first video about this. I feel like the reason the idea that going free-to-play is the way to go was given is because it was easier to get people to sign the signature if they didn't really have to give anything up. Most people are free-to-play to begin with, and the ones spending their hard-earned money on this game are probably working adults with better things to do than to go on the internet and complain about skin tone diversity. Mostly valid complaints, but still. If they told people that they had to quit playing Genshin and stop making content for it to support the movement, I assure you they wouldn't have gotten so many signatures. They gave people who wanted to feel like they were contributing to a better future an option to show support without ever getting out of their comfort zone. To most people, skin tone representation isn't worth quitting a game they still enjoyed over, and that doesn't make you racist, as much as Twitter would like to say you are. I assure you, when Natlan is released in like a few days, Mihoyo is probably going to break one of their highest banner revenue sales, because for all intents and purposes, Natlan is going to be a success. Mihoyo is very good at making sure of that. I mean, look at all their other games. The amount of Doom posting that Honkai Star Rail and Xenozone Zero got isn't very indicative of their actual success when they came out. The only way for the boycott to work, or could have worked since it's too late now, is for you to rally up enough people to quit the game and cease making content for the game, even big content creators. You not only have to affect the revenue, you also have to affect player count and interactions with Genshin as a whole, because Genshin has a lot of free-to-plays. You could even argue that those are their primary target, so going free-to-play when a good portion of the player base already is, in hindsight, isn't going to make a difference. If you truly wanted to boycott this game, you would have to not only stop spending money, you would also have to quit and continue talking about it only in the light of colorism in the game, and also convince millions of other players to do the same for every Hoyoverse game. Do you see how that is borderline a fever dream? One other thing, 2 specific games tend to get brought up whenever the conversation is about skin tone diversity in gacha games. Dislith, I believe, and Reverse 1999, a favorite game of mine. If skin tone representation is the most important thing to making a good game, like these people are pretending it is, if it tops basically everything else, why aren't these games more popular? Why aren't these people playing only those types of games? Games with borderline perfect representation? Because in actuality, having a diversity of skin tones isn't the only thing that makes an enjoyable game. You could even argue it's on the lower end of the reasons why the average player would choose to play your game. I love Reverse 1999. I feel like I've said that multiple times on this channel. It is a game that I have played since the release of Tooth Fairy, and it is a game I will always recommend if you're looking for amazing voice acting, interesting story, and a diverse cast of characters. But I can't sit here and pretend I enjoy it more than I enjoy Genshin, because that just isn't true. Despite Reverse 1999 having better representation than Genshin, I still enjoy Genshin a lot more than I enjoy Reverse 1999. I was very for the boycott and demanding more representation, and I still am on the side of wanting more representation. But I believe while most normal people wouldn't mind more skin tone diversity, most people are also not willing to give up a game they mostly enjoy just because they did a few things wrong. And that's the kicker. Genshin Impact is a game that can afford to have issues. It is a game that is fundamentally good despite all its issues, and it's probably going to be one of the very few gacha games with some semblance of cultural representation despite the numerous issues those representations have. And that's why these boycotts don't really work. 1, you're not really boycotting. 2, most people don't care. Mihoyo could potentially lose half of their yearly revenue from Genshin, and they would probably still be fine. They would also have to majorly fuck up an entire region update to lose that much money to begin with, or at least likely, a gacha game comes out that is everything Genshin is and more. Even then, nothing might change. The only person that can kill Genshin is Mihoyo, and why would they do that? Another issue with the boycott was the two extreme sides of it. On one extreme end, you have people who were so passionate about skin tone diversity that they don't listen to anyone else's perspective and believe that anyone who disagrees with them or don't care are racist, which is just not true. Going around calling anyone who isn't on your side a racist is one way to make sure people won't listen to what you have to say. If you're going to expect people to care about your cause, you have to give them a cause to care about. Educate people on why representation matters. Tell them in no uncertain terms what part of the character's design is cultural appropriation. Interview actual people from said culture to gain their opinion on things. This whole thing could have been handled in a much more professional way, but alas, it was handled by people who honestly didn't know what they were doing. I'm not saying if they did all this, the boycott would have worked. Probably not. But at least people would have had some level of respect for them. Also, slight mention, but the hypocrisy I see sometimes from these extremists makes me feel like they don't even know what representation they're looking for. Because if you're upset about skin tone diversity, you should have been upset since Liyue and Inazuma, considering Chinese and Japanese people come in many different shades that aren't just eggshell white. If you're upset about cultural appropriation as a whole, Inazuma, especially Raiden and Yamiko, aren't exactly proper representation of Japanese culture either. Because despite Genshin having some good cultural representation like Yunjin and Nilou, I believe, it also has a ton of bad ones that aren't limited to Sumeru and Natlan. I am sure that there are people who want good cultural representation for all the cultures Genshin takes inspiration from. But calling people racist for not caring about Natlan and Sumeru when you yourself don't care about Liyue and Inazuma is kind of hypocritical. There is a difference between someone who doesn't care and someone being outwardly racist. Not everyone wants or feels like they need to be properly represented in the media they consume, and that is fine. There are worse things going on in this world, and while yeah, you can focus on multiple things at once, some things are just not worth focusing on. I have even seen people say seeing their own people singing the theme song is better representation than getting skin tone diversity in a video game. Seeing actual real individuals from their culture get compensated for singing the theme song in, I think, Swahili, I believe, is much more important than a fictional depiction of them, which I personally agree with. Then there is the other extreme side of the boycott, which are the actual racists. There are people being genuinely hateful and racist to the people voicing out their opinion on these issues. Instead of either ignoring the individuals or try to hear out what they have to share, they assume the worst of them and start being extremely racist and saying slurs. These people specifically made this whole situation more of a mess, because them being racist made the extremists that were for the boycott more aggressive, which in turn made the racists double down on their racism. Whenever the topic of cultural appropriation and representation is being discussed, the most racist pieces of human waste will crawl their disgusting asses out of whatever toilet bowl they live in to tell you their most hateful opinions, accompanied with a myriad of racist slurs, because people on the internet can't just be normal about anything. Scrolling is always an option, people. You see something you don't like? Guess f***ing what? You can scroll away. And even when no one says anything about the boycott, this is specifically on Reddit, by the way, when no one says anything about the boycott, they will bring it up just to mock those that participated in it. If you don't care for skin tone diversity and cultural representation, that is fine. I would reckon most people don't, but there is a difference between not caring about it, so you ignore it, and actively going out of your way to be racist about it. For something you don't care about, you sure are pretty passionate about voicing your disgusting opinions on their cultures. Like I said, I'm very for talking about cultural representation, and I can't wait for Natlan to come out so people can actually talk about what Mihoyo did right and what they did wrong / could improve upon. Kind of like what happened in Sumeru. But the boycott was really never going to work unless you somehow convinced the majority of the player base to quit. The majority of the player base are casuals that probably don't even interact with the game on social media, so they probably don't even know this was happening. This whole boycott thing has also shown how racist some people can be, which isn't surprising but still disappointing. At the end of the day, you have to decide if the lack of skin tone diversity is enough to make you quit the game or not. If you choose to quit, maybe try out Reverse 1999. I know I talk about it a lot. It's a really good game. I'm assuming a majority of people will choose to stay though, especially with all the new stuff they have added to entice people to join, come back, or continue playing. I feel for those that started this boycott as a way to spread information about the colorism in Genshin. That is very apparent. But whatever message they wanted to send has been ruined by piss poor planning, extremists being annoying to anyone who even slightly disagrees, hypocrites, this being a Chinese gacha game, and racists making it their job to make fun and belittle their efforts. I would love if Mihoyo increased their skin tone options and branched out to different character designs and color schemes, but the chances of that happening is honestly borderline impossible at this point. So I will just play the game as is, because despite its myriad of issues, I still enjoy it, and if one day comes that I no longer do, I will just quit. Anyways, tell me what you think about this whole thing in the comment section. Are you excited for Natlan? What do you think Mihoyo could have done better? If you have any racist thoughts, keep them to yourself. I don't want to hear it, and if I see a slur in my comment section, I'm deleting it. That's all I have today. Subscribe, see you whenever.